What happens when self-defense is against the law? What happens when the protectors become the predators? What happens when innocents are betrayed? Imagine that 2/3 of all Americans disappear. 170 million people. Or that the countries of Germany, France, and Spain are virtually wiped off the map. 170 million people gone. In the 20th century, that's how many innocents were slaughtered, tortured, starved, mutilated, worked to death, bayoneted, hanged, annihilated at the hands of their governments. They had no means to defend themselves. World War I is underway. A new government has taken power over Turkey's crumbling Ottoman Empire. The rulers say they want to rid the country of wrong and lawless ideas. They want to protect national security. They decide to eliminate the Armenians from Turkey. Eliminate the Armenians by killing the Armenians. In February 1915, Turkey's political leaders and Muslim religious leaders make a detailed secret plan to annihilate the largely Christian minority. To reduce opposition, they lie about their intentions. The rulers proceed step by step. The first move, draft as many Armenian men as possible into the Turkish army. Thousands report for duty. The Armenian soldiers are then separated from their units and sent to labor camps, where they are worked to death, starved, or murdered in groups far out of public view. Not all of the men are gone, however. The next step, confiscate all weapons from Armenian civilians. Finding many guns is not hard. Turkey already has a gun control law requiring gun owners to report themselves to the government. Then comes the order. All Armenians must turn in their guns or face severe penalties. Policemen and soldiers go from house to house, ransacking homes and torturing people to get their guns. Armenians become so afraid of torture that they buy guns from other Turks, just so they can have something for the soldiers and policemen to take away. On June 26, 1915, the final stage of the genocide begins. The government proclamation declares, all Armenians will be deported to remote camps. No exceptions. Armenians have 5 days to get ready. They may bring only what they can carry. Armed guards gather the Armenians, mostly women, children, the old, and the sick, into groups of between 200 and 4,000 people to form convoys. The guards force march the Armenians over rough terrain and into the deserts during the hot summer months. People drop from exhaustion, are killed by the guards, or simply left to die. Sometimes the guards shoot or cut to pieces all the Armenians in a convoy. Fewer than 1 in 10 survive the march, and most of the survivors are butchered in the end. The death toll is staggering, as planned. 1.5 million Armenians, men, women, and children, have been eliminated from the earth. 3/4 of the Armenian population of Turkey. In the early 1930s, the outside world believes the Soviet Union is a paradise for workers and peasants. But for millions, that paradise is hell. In those years, the people of Ukraine, the Volga Basin, and the Caucasus are being deliberately starved to death by their own government. The groundwork for that cold-blooded famine was laid when the communists came to power in 1917. Almost immediately, they passed a series of laws, making it nearly impossible for non-party members to own firearms. They used licensing laws to tell them exactly who had guns, and with that information, they confiscated firearms. Penalties for possession of weapons grew more and more harsh. The Soviet leader, Joseph Stalin, fears enemies everywhere, but especially in Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe. Ukraine's prosperous farmers crave independence. Stalin craves their grain to pay for industrial expansion. In 1929, Stalin decrees that all farmland, livestock, and produce in the Soviet Union belong to the state. Farmers are ordered to surrender their land and livestock and move to government-owned collective farms. But first, to terrify the rest into submission, several million of the most prosperous farmers are sent to forced labor or killed outright. These kulaks, as the best farmers are called, are demonized and excluded from society. Armed government thugs steal their property, sneering, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for it all belongs to us." Next, Stalin demands extraordinary quotas of grain, quotas no one could possibly meet, quotas enforced by soldiers with guns. Many farmers rebel. Resistance is fierce. But because of 10 years of firearms confiscations, the helpless people can fight back only with farm tools or sabotage. The worst is still to come. In 1932, Stalin takes the ultimate revenge on those who dared oppose him. Because Stalin controls all food distribution, he can cut off food supplies and starve entire regions. Because he controls all travel with internal passports, his secret police can force starving millions to remain within the devastated lands. Grain elevators stand full, but grain rots on the ground as Stalin refuses to distribute food. The powerless people can do nothing to stop their master. Catastrophe strikes and lasts for 2 endless years. Spies watch for anyone trying to take grain from the fields. Anyone caught hiding food is executed. Desperate families resort to cannibalism. Meanwhile, the New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning Moscow correspondent Walter Duranty assures the world that there is no famine. And Stalin dupes the world by actually increasing the amount of grain exported from the Soviet Union. The United States and the League of Nations embrace and recognize the prosperous Soviet Union. From Moscow, Times reporter Duranty secretly confides the truth to Western governments, that as many as 10 million defenseless lives have been wiped out, with politically engineered starvation as the murder weapon.